Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven. I'm a pharmacist and I own 52 units of real estate. So I want to go deep into how I purchased my first 26 unit apartment complex. I closed on it in August of 2021. And I just kind of want to go through the whole timeline in significant detail to kind of show you all the work that went into it. So I first stumbled across like multifamily real estate on YouTube back in early 2021. I just started learning about multifamily, and what really struck a chord with me on watching these videos was when I learned that the value of multifamily real estate is based on the net operating income divided by the market cap rate. So the value of multifamily, which is 5+ units, is valued based on the income it produces over a market cap rate versus with single family home or residential real estate, which is 1 to 4 units. The value of that asset is based on what your neighbor's house sells for. So it's based, if your neighbor's house sells for $100,000 and you have the same house right next door, it's going to sell for $100,000 as well. But with multifamily, if one apartment has an NOI of 5,000 and one apartment has an NOI of 10,000, that property that has an NOI of 10,000 will be worth double. So once I kind of learned that, it kind of like blew my mind and really shook me up a little bit. And to be honest, I was like, oh my God, like that's insane. Like I have control over forced depreciation. I have a lot of scalability, and that was really appealing to me. Like I could buy a 20 unit apartment complex. Each tenant would be paying me. So if I only had maybe let's say 3 tenants weren't paying me, I still have 17 tenants paying me, and it should help cover the costs. So I liked how it was very scalable. There's economies of scale, and I could force appreciation by renovating the units and raising the rents up to market rent. So the key is really buying right. So I joined a multifamily mentorship program that costed $30,000. Yes, it was expensive, but it really motivated me to, take action and to buy real estate. So, the thing I started doing immediately was now that I know how to underwrite multifamily real estate, very basic is you take your gross rents. Your expense ratio is at least 50% typically if you're buying C-class apartment complexes. Expense is about 50-55%, and whatever is left over is your net operating income. And then based on your purchase price, based on your down payment, based on your loan amortization, based on your interest rate, you can calculate what your monthly debt service was. So for me, once you have your NOI minus your debt service, you have your pure net positive cash flow, right? And from there, I could times that by 12, calculate my cash and cash return. So if I put in $100,000 on the deal, and let's just say I cash flow $10,000 a year, that's a 10% return on my money, which is what I was aiming for. So I just understood the very basics of that, right? And if I'm able to increase the rents and decrease the expenses, I can increase the NOI and then therefore increase the value. So I remember I started my first direct mailing campaign in March of 2021, and I basically used PropStream, and I just would type in like different counties in Oklahoma, and I would, just you can Google it, like where are the most populated counties in Oklahoma, and they'll just list from like most populated to least, and I just would go down the list. So I would take the most populated, which was Oklahoma County, put that into PropStream, and I would put all my filters in there. So it had to be like multifamily, commercial, garden apartments, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes. And I was targeting between 5 to 100 units because those are typically mom and pop owners. And what else did I do? And they had to own it for at least 2 years, right? So obviously, the longer they own it, the increased chance of you getting seller financing. So I remember I got my data from PropStream, and you can export to a nice Excel document, and then I emailed that Excel document to Yell Letters Complete, and I had a letter template that I used. And from there, usually they'll charge you like I think it was like $1.84 per letter, and I have videos talking about my direct mail, but like I use a invitation letter, so it's kind of like a little thank you card size, and the name and address is handwritten. My address and name is on the back, and I use my Dr. Stephen Nguyen title because I have a doctorate level degree as a pharmacist to build more trust. And then in the letter, it's a standard template, and I would, hand sign it or have someone hand sign it, and they would handwrite, call me, and here's my phone number. So it kind of felt like more personalized. Felt like you're getting a thank you card from your friend, because the whole point of direct mail is to get them to open it and hopefully call you, right? Like if they just get it and throw it away, well, you just wasted $1.84. So, I started off with about, 300 letters per month. I thought it was a sweet spot because the average response rate is around 3%, I would say. So if I send out, 300, maybe 10 people will call me. So I just thought, so I would send out the letters, I remember like every Monday. And I know by Friday, I'll start to get most of the calls. They might text me, they might email me, they might call me. So at that point, it's just like you're just throwing a fishing rod into the ocean and see who bites. So I remember like the first call I got, I was like super excited. It was this guy, and he was a very interesting character. He actually, his name was BC. Like I'm not making this up, but his name was like BC. Like he changed his name apparently to BC, or maybe that was the alias he was using. But he was a very eccentric guy, and a lot of multifamily owners are very eccentric. And I remember he was just like, "Hey, I got this 80 unit. I own it myself, and I did a bunch of this fix up and all this." And he just went down this list, and this is what I want to sell it for, and this is. I remember, I think he wanted like 4 million or something. And I was just like, oh my god, that's way bigger than what I was kind of aiming for. But it was like I think it was like a 60 unit apartment complex. So I remember, like, I kind of knew, okay, well, I'm not gonna take down this deal myself. I probably don't want to syndicate the deal because it's my first deal. I'm a beginner, so I was just more using this as like a learning experience for myself to learn how to talk to the owners. So I was just like, okay, well, hey, let me, he went into spiel about it. Like he actually lived in like a trailer that was right in front of the apartment, and he would then like manage the apartments himself. He would manage the renovation himself, and then he's like, "Yeah, I came in, I had a bunch of tenants that didn't pay, and I kicked them all out, and now I'm stabilizing it, and I upgrade the fire safety to modern day code. I have vents that close if there's a fire. I have a firewall. I have fire alarms. It's a brick build, so it's more durable. And for me, I'm open to self-financing this deal if you give me like $70,000 down on this deal." And I was just like, okay, actually, I did have the capacity for 700 down, but I was just like, oh, like, so I was like overwhelmed, right? Like, once again, I was like, oh, shoot, like, what do I do? So, I talked to him, and then, he gave me some credit financing terms, and I was like, all right, cool. Well, can you send me the T12, the profit and loss statement for the past 12 months, as well as a recent rent roll? And I can get that over to my lender to underwrite this deal, and let's see what type of offer I can come up with, right? And I'll try the credit finance offer as well. So after the call, I was like, hey, like whenever you send that to me, I'll probably gonna analyze it, talk to my lender, and is it okay if I call you back? And he was like, yeah, that's cool. So so I got the T12, and I don't remember the specifics now looking back on that first deal, but like yeah, the income was like decent, but the expense I remember was like very high. It was like maybe 60-70%, and the occupancy was a little bit low. I think it was about 70% occupied. So out the gate, I kind of knew that like the lender doesn't like 70% occupancy. They typically want you at around 90%, at least 80, or trending in the right direction. So I called up my lender and remember like underwriting the deal. The lender was like, yeah, like honestly, we would need you to do 25% down, amortized over 25 years, and your interest rate's going to be like 5%. And this is during 2021, so at the time 5% to me seemed high. And I remember I underwrote the deal with him, and he was just like, yeah, like this is probably the best purchase price you can do, offer price you can do to hit that debt service coverage ratio, in order to hit that goal. So I remember I came back to him and was like, yeah, like, hey, I know you want like 4 million, but the best offer I can do based on talk to my lender is like 3 million. And I remember like he got like so offended by that offer, and he's just like, oh, I thought you were serious about real estate and all this. And I was just like, hey, like that's what my lender says, and my lender is putting most of the money in the deal, right? I'm putting 25% down, and the lender is financing 75%. And certainly I'll look at the credit financing numbers, but I don't want to put $70,000 down. If we want to do credit financing, then it's gonna be a lower down payment. And he was just like, no, I'm not interested. So yeah, that was it. I remember I touched base with him like a month later. He didn't respond, so I'm like, okay, maybe he wasn't that motivated and very centric. But like you get a lot of like weird personalities like this, right? So like you would talk to a bunch of people. You get some weird people who want to oversell the price. You might get people who have already listed with a broker, and they're just trying to see if you can overpay for the property. So you see a lot of weird things. And what I always told myself and my mentality was like, you know what? I'm just gonna make an offer that makes sense for me, and if you like it, great. We can work together. If not, you know, then I have to move on from the deal. So, that's kind of really was my mindset behind that. Was like I would make just a regular offer. I would know what the purchase price was, and I would know how high I could go, right? So if I'd offer $5 million, then I would know that my highest price would be $6 million. So that was just kind of the middle ground in terms of what I saw. So I would always know what my price would be in and what my max price would be, and then everything in the middle is negotiable, right? So that's how I really structured it. So in my mind, I would go in like, for example, I'd offer 500,000, knowing I'd go up to like maybe 800,000, right? But let's see how far we negotiate and how everything pans out, right? So after that, so that's how I just made offers, and I would talk to owners, get T12s, get rent rolls, make offers, right? So I would literally do that. That was my cycle. Like in March, I sent out 300 letters, talk to owners, make offers, get rejected. In April, I would send out 300 letters, make offers, talk to owners, get rejected. In I think May, same thing, right? And then in June, I came across his owner. He actually emailed me, and it was ended up being a deal that I bought. But he was an attorney, and he actually never wanted to talk to me on the phone, nor through text. He wanted everything in email. So it was like literally one email thread that we just kept on replying to each other through. And I remember by the end, that email had like at least 100 email responses between the two of us, and he wanted everything documented because he was an attorney. So he wanted everything written so that he can come after me if I were to deviate from anything. So like for me, you always have to communicate in the way that the seller wants to communicate, right? If they want to communicate via email, talk email. If you want to communicate on the phone, talk on the phone. If they want text message, text them, right? So like he wanted everything emailed. So that's how it really was for that, and that was kind of the strategy that I had. So I said, hey, like, tell me about the property at a high level. So it's a 26 unit. He owned it. He self managed it. He's an attorney. He used one unit as one of his offices, and he was using it for a tax benefit. He owned it for like 20 years, and he was just looking to sell because he's in his mid 60s. I think he was 68 years old, and he went to Oklahoma State, I think, because I remember when I saw him, he had an Oklahoma State sweater on, and I guess he just wanted to retire because like he was doing everything himself. He was doing his own pest control. He was doing his own self management. He was doing his own maintenance on top of running a law firm, right, which is already very busy. So from there, he told me about the property. It was mostly one bedroom, some two bedrooms, and this is the rent roll. This is the income. He gave me a profit and loss statement, which was on like a Word doc. I remember he had like the first line, like he just pulled it from his tax return. First line income, second line expense, third line property tax, fourth line insurance. And he just broke that down for me for the year. And then I looked at his rent roll, and then most of his tenants were like there for a very long time. He had a lot of tenants that were all bills paid, so like he covered the utilities, right? He charged $500, but he covered utilities, so he covered the water, the gas, electricity. But so I don't personally like that. So I looked at it. I was like, okay. And I remember I underwrote the numbers, and based on the offer price I remember for my offer, I looked on three different sources. So the first one is the tax assessed record, which is public information. So I could literally Google the address, and then I could find the county and find the tax bill and see how much it's valued at, right? That's number one. Number two is you take the net operating income divided by the market cap rate. So at the time, interest rates were like 4% to 5%. I thought Oklahoma was like an 8 cap market, right? Today it's a 10 cap market because interest rates went up. So, I took his income, I took his expenses that he gave me and divided that by 8 cap, and okay, that was my second offer. And my last offer was a price per door. But the problem with price per door is that's more of a kind of single family residential home valuation, right? So I usually get all three, and I take the lowest of the three, and that's my initial offer. So the lowest was always the tax less price. So I literally wrote him a after a bunch of back and forth, like I sent a bunch of emails, had questions like, hey, why are you looking to sell? He's like, I just want to retire. I'm like, hey, do you want to do seller financing? Is that something that you're interested in? I know a lot of wealthy people that own it free and clear want to avoid capital gains tax. Like, is that something you're interested in? He's like, no, I just want to straight sell this and be done with it, and just get the lump sum for my retirement. And I was like, okay, cool, that's fine. And so I wrote him an offer on a letter of intent, which is called a LOI for short, and I just wrote the tax test price of 520K, and I ran the numbers right with my lender. So I wanted 25% down. I got 30-year amortized, 4.25% interest, right? So my monthly debt service payment was about 1,900 bucks a month. So I think the income was roughly about 9,000 bucks a month. Cut that in half for expenses. So 4,500 was expense. My NOI is 4,500, and then minus about 2,000 for my debt service. So I thought I was going to cash flow, day one, roughly about 2,000 bucks a month. So I thought it was pretty good. Times 12, it's 24,000.